Hey there, open and distance learning students. Welcome to this Masterclass Explainer, brought to you by the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication at Odisha State Open University, Sambalpur. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we are going to completely transform the way you watch movies. Seriously, by the end of this session, you're going to uncover the hidden visual language of cinema, which is going to let you see the highly deliberate psychological choices behind literally every single frame.
Let's just jump right in, shall we? Think about this for a second. Why do we suddenly feel on the edge of our seat, or experience immense joy, or just get this deep sense of unease when we're watching a film? Well, it's never an accident. Every emotion you feel in a theater is the direct result of highly deliberate filmmaking techniques. Directors are essentially using specific instruments and strategies to hook you in and transmit meaning.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the filmmaker's visual toolkit, structuring the story, cinematic aesthetics, major global film movements, and finally, wrap it up with our key takeaways.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the filmmaker's visual toolkit. Think of these tools as the literal building blocks every director uses to arouse feelings and completely pull you into their world. First up, we've got cinematography. Now, this is the sheer skill of capturing images on camera. It is definitely not just pointing and shooting, right? It's about lens selection, camera movement, framing, and shot composition. For instance, a wide-angle shot establishes the grand scope of a scene, whereas a tight close-up practically forces you to confront a character's raw emotions. And if a camera is handheld, boom, you immediately get this sudden sense of gritty realism and urgency.
Next, we have a great French term, mise en scène. Translating literally to placing on stage, this refers to absolutely everything positioned in front of the camera. We're talking sets, props, costumes, and even the actors' performances. A brilliant example of this is Wes Anderson's The Grand Budapest Hotel. Anderson uses this meticulous symmetry, super vibrant color palettes, and perfectly designed sets to craft a completely immersive, whimsical world. On the flip side, if you see a character placed in a cramped, messy room, you can bet that specific mise en scene is a direct visual metaphor for their unstable state of mind.
Okay, let's do a really quick recap of these foundational tools. Cinematography captures the image, mise en scène builds the visual world, lighting creates the mood, like how low-key lighting builds up dramatic tension. Sound design, which is your dialogue, music, and effects, drives the narrative forward. And finally, editing builds that cohesive story flow, arranging all those images into a language we intuitively understand.
Moving right along to Section 2, structuring the story, or what we call film form. Now that we have our tools, we have to arrange them. That's film form, and its absolute most crucial point in narrative cinema is causality. It's basically events connected through cause and effect relationships, like a giant chain of dominoes. Indian cinema employs this beautifully. Take a movie like Tare Zameen Par. The protagonist, Ishan, struggles with dyslexia, cause his academic failure, which then results in severe emotional distress. And that distress is the exact catalyst for his teacher's intervention. One event directly triggers the next, which is exactly what keeps us emotionally hooked.
Film form also relies heavily on manipulating time and space. Think about Dangal. Time is manipulated using these incredibly powerful montages to condense literally years of grueling wrestling training into just a few minutes of screen time. Contrast that with spatial unity in a film like 12 Fail, where the narrative intentionally grounds us in highly realistic, confined environments. This emphasizes the everyday claustrophobia and the sheer struggles of an aspirant. The scope of time and space completely dictates how we experience a story.
Before we dive deeper, let's quickly lock in this knowledge. Narrative form relies on causality, that all-important cause and effect. We also have non-narrative form, like the film Koyaanisqatsi, which prioritizes abstract themes over traditional plots. Then there's documentary form, like 13th, which blends hard facts with creative techniques. And remember, all of these utilize time and space to manipulate how we perceive the cinematic world.
That brings us to Section 3, cinematic aesthetics, also known as film style.
So, if film form is the structural skeleton of a movie, film style is the specific artistic personality that gives it a distinctive tone. Two major players here are editing and sound. Editing determines the rhythm. For example, The Avengers uses logical, smooth continuity editing to make sure complex action scenes stay perfectly clear. But then you have Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless, which intentionally uses jarring jump cuts to create a rebellious sense of urgency. And then we have sound. Think of the movie Jaws. That simple, ominous two-note score, played on a tuba of all things, creates immense anxiety and signals impending danger way before we even see a shark. Editing and sound are really what makes style unique.
All right, let's dive into Section 4, major global film movements.
For the second half of our masterclass, we're basically stepping into a historical gallery. We're going to see how directors utilized form and style in response to the real world. We're tracking 4 revolutionary global movements that evolved over a half-century. And honestly, these didn't just happen randomly. They were born from highly turbulent socio-political climates, ranging from the traumatic aftermath of World War I all the way to the youth rebellions of the 1960s. Let's compare our first 2 movements side by side. German Expressionism emerged in the 19-teens, right after World War I, and it rejected realism entirely. Instead, films like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari used heavily distorted angular sets and stark chiaroscuro lighting, which is just a fancy term for extreme contrast between light and dark, to explore themes of madness and the subconscious. Now, fast forward and contrast that with American film noir in the 1940s. Noir took those heavy, dramatic shadows, but applied them to gritty, rain-soaked urban environments. Films like Double Indemnity explored crime, moral ambiguity, and betrayal with really complex, non-linear storytelling.
Now, noir's influence definitely wasn't limited to Hollywood. Let's look at how this connects locally for us. Indian cinema beautifully adapted noir's display of light and shade to tell its own stories of moral ambivalence and crime. Films like Vidhu Vinod Chopra's Parinda and Aditya Bhattacharya's Rakh trace these stylistic roots really closely. But it was Ram Gopal Varma's Satya that truly ushered in the era of Mumbai noir, taking those downbeat, shadowy aesthetics and brilliantly applying them to the Indian urban landscape.
As we move to our next historical movement, I want you to chew on this question for a second. Does a film actually need artificial sets, glamorous actors, or a happy ending to be considered a masterpiece? Well, the directors of post-World War II Italy certainly didn't think so.
And that brings us to Italian neorealism. Emerging after the sheer devastation of World War II, this movement completely rejected glamorous escapism. Directors wanted to show life as it truly was. Championing everyday, unpolished authenticity, filmmakers like Vittorio De Sica, with his absolute masterpiece Bicycle Thieves, used non-professional actors and shot on real, rubble-strewn streets instead of studio sets. They focused heavily on the poverty and post-war disillusionment of the working class. And they often favored open, ambiguous endings because, let's face it, real life rarely wraps up perfectly with a bow. Finally, we hit the late 1950s with the French New Wave, or La Nouvelle Vague. This was a massive rebellion against rigid cinematic rules, spearheaded by young film critics turned directors like Jean-Luc Godard and François Truffaut. They literally popularized the jump cut to violently disrupt smooth editing. They used handheld cameras, sometimes even pushing them around in shopping carts, to create this raw, documentary-like energy. Working with super low budgets, they shot on location, completely discarded traditional narrative structures, and focused intensely on existentialism and youth rebellion.
Okay, let's quickly summarize these 4 incredible movements. German Expressionism showcased a totally distorted, psychological reality. Film noir explored dark urban crimes and moral gray areas. Italian neorealism championed everyday, unpolished authenticity and social issues. And the French New Wave? They just broke all the conventional rules to capture spontaneous, youthful energy. So, we have 4 completely different ways to solve the overarching problem of visual storytelling.
And finally, Section 5, Summary and Key Takeaways. We have covered a fantastic wealth of academic ground today, moving from the microscopic choices of lighting all the way up to global macro movements. If there is one core thesis you take away for your coursework today, make it this. Filmmaking is a highly deliberate craft. It is the exact intersection where form, style, and historical context meet to shape your emotional and intellectual experience. Understanding these techniques means you get to stop passively watching movies and start critically assessing the brilliant artistic process happening right in front of you.
So here are your 5 key takeaways to master. Number 1, specific techniques like editing and cinematography actively guide the audience's emotions. Number 2, film form dictates structural progression, primarily through causality and manipulating time. Number 3, film style establishes a film's distinctive aesthetic tone. Number 4, movements like German Expressionism and film noir utilize stark, shadow-heavy, and symbolic visuals to explore the darker sides of human psychology and society. And number 5, Italian neorealism and the French New Wave completely rejected artificiality, prioritizing raw, unembellished realism and highly experimental storytelling.
I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge for your studies. The very next time you sit down to watch a movie, I want you to ask yourself, What is the director trying to make me feel right now? And which specific tools, whether it's a jarring jump cut, a low-angle shot, or moody low-key lighting, are they using to achieve it? Keep asking questions, keep critically analyzing the media you consume, and above all, keep enjoying the magic of cinema. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and happy learning.